Hey guys, Ms. Chronister here. Hopefully you've read through the first 3 chapters of To Kill a Mockingbird and you're well on your way with your assignments. I am here if you need me. So I don't want you guys to feel like because you're in an online class you don't have help from a teacher. I'm always here. You can email me, come see me during my office hours, come catch me at U High. Whatever you need, we can work out a way for you to get a hold of me and make sure you understand this stuff. So don't hesitate to ask. Hopefully you've started reading this book and you've encountered some of our characters here. I want to talk about a few of these characters. First up is Boo. Boo is kind of a minor character, but he's important. So pay attention to him. You've probably noticed how the mood shifts when we talk about Boo in the story. Everything is happy, the town is wonderful, everybody gets along, and then there's Boo. Nobody wants to go to his house. People walk quickly by it. If a ball goes in the yard, you don't go and get it. People steer clear of Boo, even though they've never seen him. So there seems to be a lot of talk about Boo. People know a lot of stories about him. They seem to know all about his situation, but nobody's really seen him. And maybe you can make a text-to-self connection there. There have probably been times when you've been judged by people who haven't seen you or don't really know you or haven't heard what you said. Seems to kind of be the situation going on with Boo. So even though it is a little weird that he doesn't come out of his house and nobody's seen him, make sure you're grounding your opinions about him in the text and things that you actually see him do, or so that like real evidence of what he's really like, not just hearsay like Miss Stephanie saying he's stabbed his dad with scissors or whatever. So Boo's kind of a minor character. Pay attention to him though, he's important. We also encountered some kids at school. There is Walter Cunningham, who Scout is not fond of. He got her in trouble at school because he didn't want to take a quarter from Miss Caroline. This is kind of speaks to the situation that most kids in the school are in. They're really poor. So kind of just keep that in mind as you're reading through this story. It tells us a little bit about the time period, about the kids. But Walter doesn't want to take a quarter from his teacher because his family wouldn't be able to pay it back. So Scout tries to explain that to Miss Caroline without success, and I think Scout's being able to read and trying to stick up for Walter and all this stuff. Miss Caroline has just like had it with her. You guys have probably seen a teacher who's just had it with a student. That's Miss Caroline and Scout right now. So Scout's super frustrated too. Remember, she was looking forward to the first day of school until all this went down. So she gets in a fight with Walter at lunch. Jem tries to smooth over the situation by inviting him over for lunch. So they go back to the house, and Scout, in very much tactfulness here, she criticizes Walter for pouring syrup all over his meal, which is a little weird, but you know, when you have a guest at your house, you are polite and you have manners and you don't comment on the weird things that they do. So Calpurnia has to take her aside and remind her of that. But this is kind of an instance we want to look at with Scout because she doesn't really have this filter yet. She also didn't have that filter when she was talking to Dill about Dill's father, and Dill said he didn't have a father, and Scout asked if he was dead. That's a little, you wouldn't ask that to somebody. And then she goes, well, if he ain't dead, you've got one, right? And Jem has to like hush her. So Scout is kind of lacking this filter. She doesn't say things very gracefully. But remember, this is a coming of age story. So think about where Scout's at now with her language, the things she says. One of your assignments is to look at the things she says and kind of analyze them. So remember that and think about and just keep an eye on it as the story progresses. And maybe she's going to grow up and have a little bit more of an understanding of people after this. So anyway, Walter comes over for dinner, and after Scout's fiasco, they go back to school, and we meet another kid at school, Burris Ewell. I want you guys to remember the Ewell name. It's going to be important. Right now, the author is foreshadowing something, and remember, foreshadowing is when the author kind of gives us a hint about something to come. So the Ewell name is going to come up later in our story, but we're getting some background information now that's going to be useful and going to help us paint a better picture of the Ewell family. Atticus says they've been a disgrace to Macomb County for 3 generations. The kids are filthy. In fact, they say he's the filthiest human being they've ever seen. He's got like bugs crawling in his hair. he is awful to the teacher. The words that he says to her are just horrible. He makes her cry, in fact. So just remember this. Remember these characteristics with the Yule name, and use them later on in the story. The final thing I want to talk about is Atticus and some of the things he says. So after Scout's horrible day at school, she doesn't want to go back. She wants to be just like Burris Yule, go the first day and never come back. Atticus, though, rather than thinking about things just from Scout's point of view, he wants her to think about Miss Caroline's point of view. He says, if you can learn a simple trick, Scout, you'll get along a lot better with all kinds of folks. You never really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view, until you climb into his skin and walk around in it. So, is that not a life lesson we can all take away from this novel? We all should be considering things from other people's point of view. We never know what somebody's going through. I could have a student who puts their head down in class and chooses not to do any work, and I could go over there and yell at them or whatever, but maybe they're going through maybe they just had a death in the family, or maybe they're going through something difficult at home. If I don't stop and consider things from their point of view, I could treat them really poorly and do so very unnecessarily. So Atticus's words here are really, really wise. He's trying to get Scout to understand that, Miss Caroline, it was her first day of school. She's a first-time teacher. This is tough for her too, so cut her some slack. I think those words of wisdom are worth all of us to listen to. So here's kind of like the first little nugget of wisdom we get from Atticus. I want you to pay attention to Atticus's words because he always seems to say the right thing at the right time. And they're lessons we can take away from this book and apply to our own lives. So all these things we kind of talked about all have to do with characterization. So there are a lot of rich characters in this story. They've just got so much depth. So I want you to pay attention to things they say and the things they do because we can learn a lot about them. So as always, talk to me if you need some help. I'm here, and I will see you guys again soon.